potentially send in some live questions. And we are live. Wow. It seems to slide up on me real quick nowadays. I don't know what's going on. Welcome to 30 with Karen and Justin. We have Karen, we have Justin. We also have another incredibly special guest. Funny story. I was in No Frills in the parking lot returning my cart, and some weird, crazy lady walked up to me and said, "Hey, are you Justin? I follow you on Facebook." And, and we sort of talked, and I introduced herself as Lisa Kearns, mayoral candidate. And I was like, I'm the bigger celebrity here. Like, what's going on? This is hilarious. No, I'm just kidding. So Lisa, thanks for coming on. Lisa is here to discuss her background, maybe her local council experience, and some of the core issues maybe upcoming in the Burlington mayoral race. How are you, Lisa?
I'm so great. And yes, I took a couple of beats before I said hi to you because it was that Sunday meal prep grocery. My hair was in a big bun. My shirt was untucked. I looked nothing like a mayoral candidate, and you look nothing like a real estate agent or otherwise. So
No,
I
that's our
love
job
that
in the
about
grocery store.
Burlington.
Just, yeah.
People are who they are when they are, and I love that authenticity about just getting things done on a Sunday afternoon.
Well, the funny story about that is that used to be our grocery store growing up. And I used to go, "Mom, why are you talking to so many people? Can we go now?" And this is what happens to me all the time when I walk through that store too. So back to our roots here. Lisa, let's start with you as a human being. I don't know much about you, quite frankly. We were friends on Facebook. We've got a couple of connections there. But what was it that led you into just getting into politics in the first place?
Yeah, so I have a degree in poli-sci from Western University, so I did do that, and that choice was because those were where my highest marks kept landing. So I just continued that through to an honors degree, and to be honest, I didn't pay it much mind. I went straight into the workforce. I went into manufacturing in a local steel company in Hamilton, Stelco, and I started working in AP, accounts payable, because when you're out of school, the first thing you want to do is really just get that job experience and quickly moved into procurement, found that a really interesting part of the company, right? And in a company, there's two sides to it. One is you make money, and the other half is you save money. And I really loved that strategy and that negotiation. You do learn a lot of that in politics, right? Because it's always that tension between who gets what, how much, and when. And that was really a recurring theme through that procurement type of corporate experience. And then continued on through my corporate roles, and we can get into those later on. But then it was really in 2017, 2018 when there were pretty big shifts happening in the downtown related to growth and development. And some folks might remember that as Grow Bold. And it wasn't really coming forward in a way that was working with the community and that the community felt like their voice was being heard. So I started to just untangle the language that the council of the day was using and tell it to people in a regular way. And they kind of said, whoa, hold on, I don't think that's what we signed up for. And some of those examples would look like 17 stories in the middle of Village Square and things of that nature. And that's when people started really listening. And the current mayor had left her seat to run for mayor 2 terms ago. And then people started pointing at me and saying, "We really like the way that you're cutting through the political talk. You're just telling us what we need to do, how to do it, and what outcomes can occur. And we want to see more of that in local politics." And because in particular at that time, the downtown, which is where my home is, and my family and my friends are, it meant so much to me, our local businesses, that I started to take those conversations from people very seriously and think about running for office. And it was a highly contentious race at that time in 2018, and I'm still grateful for being, selected to represent the community in this capacity. And so the same thing kind of happened again this time. So I only wanted to do 2 terms, and was going to look at going back into my corporate roles. And I did really leave that corporate ladder, national roles, working with great teams, doing work that was very meaningful. And then the community came up behind me once again and said, "Hey, wait, I think we want that same kind of leadership at a little bit of a different level across the whole city. And we really encourage you to run." So that's kind of how I ended up in politics. So I guess it was because of either just early education or post-secondary education. I always liked the business, law, creative, etc. type classes in high school. And I guess it just led me to where I am today, which is a bit of an interesting path.
When I look at politics right now, it's a mess. I mean, it's like there's a lot of vitriol and hatred and both sides of different conversations, and there's a lot of finger pointing, and there's a lot of hatred towards politicians in general, and a lot of distrust. Um, you know, was there ever a moment where you thought about whether it's the mayoral candidacy or your ward candidacy, your councillor candidacy? Um, was there ever a moment where you sat with your family and you were like, should I even do this?
Well, I don't want to be contrary, but I don't have that same experience. So I observe that experience from other narratives, other online things, other pledges, but I don't have that experience. So my social media is what it is. There's no hidden or deleted comments. I don't have any concerns that I'm bringing forward saying, hey, I don't feel that comfortable about this. I have had a couple of those experiences for sure, but I won't let them kind of get in my way. But I don't take that as a concern at this point. Is this is too important of a city? It's where people have really made very strong choices to have this location, this community as part of their life's journey. And I really respect that and how much work goes into getting there. I grew up in East Hamilton, and to be living in downtown Burlington is kind of a dream. And to be able to gift this to my children, I know how hard I had to work to get here. That I think it's too important to let, oftentimes unfounded chatter, kind of get in the way or derail that. But I also think that, I've always just told people what it is and directly gave them, like, I've never sugarcoated anything. I tell it like it is. If I have to tell them no, they get a no. If it's a yes, we can, but I don't play the political games that causes some of that tension. And so I think that just kind of keeping that sort of not even allowing it in to cloud the work that needs to be done is the way that I approach things. So, I'll get a little bit personal pretty quickly, but, I did lose my mom at a young age, and many people know some of that story. And that kind of just reshifted my priorities really quickly, that I don't waste time or spend time on anything that isn't really meaningful and really valuable, or people that aren't kind of filling my bucket or are aligning with values and things that I hold dear. So, I'm always here to listen, but I don't have time to subscribe to any of that sort of toxic narrative. I just shift myself away from it and let it carry on in the background.
That's awesome. No, I mean, again, like it's hard to not see this stuff on the interwebs. I think the internet's made it worse. But it's nice to hear that you're just going to go ahead and do what you need to do and tell it like it is. When it comes
But
to
it's an accountability thing too,
sure,
Justin, where, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and that's okay.
yeah,
And I say thank you, call it out. Let's recalibrate. I'm always ready to say sorry, to say we didn't get it right this time. We need to try a different path. And I think that's really the tipping point with most politicians or politics at large, is that too many just get set on a path and they can't walk it back. And that's when that tension continues to rise.
they can't walk it back, or they don't want to be wrong. Because
Exactly.
if they're wrong, that's a notch against them in some way, shape, or form to go down another path. It seems like then that turns into lies, then that turns into other things.
Yeah. Well, I tell my kids, they'll say something like, my young daughter, she'll say, oh, does this sweater look good on me? And I'll say, yeah, it does. She'll say, are you lying? I said, no, I tell you all the time, I don't have enough brain capacity for lies, because if you come out in that another day and I say, oh, why are you wearing that? Then I will instantly have been caught in that lie. So I just tell them, I don't have any more brain capacity to lie to you. So you have to just, if you ask me a question, you're getting the truth.
You know what? You're right. It is harder to lie than it is to tell the
It's too much
truth, quite
effort.
frankly. Yeah, I agree. I agree. You worked in the private sector, obviously, as we've just heard. How does that experience influence how you would manage in the public sector?
Yeah, in fact, I think it's one of the defining things in my candidacy, because I worked under a lot of pressure with a lot of incredible teams. all across Canada in a few different national roles. I was responsible for budgets bigger than the cities. I've done negotiations that have been high stakes. And I think to have that coupled with the public policy piece being both practical and academic experience with that, I think it's really a unique set of skills to bring to a mayoral candidacy, because you don't see a lot of people coming out of successful corporate careers to serve community, right? So oftentimes it's lifelong politicians or sort of entrepreneurs, which is an important role as well. But I think that in these really critical times, having someone who can solidly, stand on a balance sheet, stand on corporate strategy, stand on a corporate, director certification that was earned and paid for by myself as even, the class valedictorian or whatever we called it, class representative. I think you will be hard pressed to find that combination across Ontario as we go into this municipal election in October. And I think it also puts me in a really unique position where I can bring those best practices. And I'm not even saying better practices, I'm saying best practices and strategy and process and project management, which is all in my experience repertoire. But couple that in with that compassionate side that really must be present in order to care and nurture for our city.
Yeah, good.
You had mentioned in your candidacy launch that property taxes have been a bit of a major burden on residents in general. Are there any specific municipal programs or spending lines that you might adjust to help with that burden?
Yeah,
Is
thanks for
that too
asking.
specific? Like, I don't
No,
want.
it's not. Well, I already brought $750,000 forward in savings in the last budget. That was the most of any representative. And some of those approaches were to reduce contributions to some reserve funds, which carried programs that have kind of blown out of proportion. So even every penny counts. And so, you opened up with kind of joking about no frills. I shop at No Frills because every penny counts. And that's how people are living right now. And in my statement in December on not accepting the budget, it wasn't on something philosophical like strong mayor's powers. It was on the fact that the budget didn't reflect the way that people were living their lives right now in this moment of time. And that is very serious. So when programs have inflated, like the bench program, that's up to $80,000. It used to be 5,000 a bench. Well, then we had different tariffs. Now we have labor increases. We have all kinds of things, and the programs ballooned. We had people who were getting hired immediately for new roles and become part of the corporate spend in perpetuity forever when they need to be coming in on contract, prove that they're paying for their own salaries. So in the example of one of them, it was a finance investment strategist. If you're saying that the business case is that this person will make more interest on our investments to offset their salary, then prove it. Prove it in a year or two, make it a contract position. And when it's proven, then we'll move it over to full-time. You have to keep people aligned with the business case that brings them into our organization. And we saw some different tax rates across municipalities in Ontario because of, in particular, the offset from that tax in like that we have some money or capital money. We have money in the bank, right? Just like everyone at home, you make a little bit of interest on it. It goes into your back pocket and makes things a little bit easier to deal with, right? We want to do that at the city too. And we have not enough people that can do that. So when we say we want to have them in, let's try it out and make sure that this approach works and then bring them on full time, but don't put them straight into the tax base forever without proving it. So we also need to reshift our procurement policy that's coming in soon. And as you know, I'm an expert in that. And so we're going to see some improvements there too once we get more centralized procurement. And as I started off with, you either make more money or you save more money. So we need to make more money with our investments. We need to make more money with our sponsorships. If you look at other municipalities, they have a robust sponsorship policy where we couldn't even get Robert Bateman to put $1 towards Bateman Community Center. So we definitely need to work on making sponsors in our community feel more welcomed, aligned, acknowledged, celebrated, because I know there's so many people in Burlington that want to do some of that legacy giving. They want to do some of those naming rights, and they want to be part of the city in a bigger way. So we need to make that path open for them. And that's the other half, right? That's the making money. And then we need to save the money. And so when we strategize around centralizing that procurement piece, we need to look at some of our departments that are in debt. The planning department, I believe at this moment, is $680,000 in debt on its reserve fund. The building department hollowed out a third of its reserves for stabilization. So something's got to give there, because that money can't keep draining while we're working towards those big growth targets and staffing up as if we are on track when we're really not. So we need to do a very serious level loading of where we put our staffing resources. And then what I'm hearing from the community is that they want new investments in new places, and those places are especially bylaw, community safety, enforcement, traffic. All of those are really high priorities, and they're some of our lowest funded departments per capita.
It's interesting you bring that up. We just spoke about it before, and I'll let you say what you said to me before, because it's a really great explanation of what exactly is happening. There's a lot of confusion right now as to these e-scooters and what's happening with them. So from a municipal level, from a government level, what is the status of them right now? What can we, I know the police have put out videos saying they're only allowed on Centennial Trail, and you obviously got these rental scooters that are sitting there as well. What's the story? What's the real brass tacks about what's happening, and what needs to happen in order for this to progress?
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit tricky, because I would call it like too many fingers in the pot on this one. So what's happening is that the province regulates our roads, of course, right? The Ministry of Transportation does the roads. The police do enforcement of that particular, the Highway Traffic Act. And then the province, the way that they drafted the legislation around this emerging micromobility option, which is e-scooters, e-bikes, etc., was really that municipalities could kind of chart their own course and do a pilot project, and before they did a bylaw. So that's what we've done, and we did it. I think we're in our second year of the pilot. Again, there's so many pieces to this, but no one truly is owning it, but we're definitely hearing it. So my personal opinion is that I certainly think there is a place for micromobility. I know personally for me and a lot of people in sort of more urban areas, getting around quickly on a scooter or e-bike is much more financially attainable. It's faster. It's more appropriate for level loading or parking assets. And of course, it's a better nod to our environmental commitments, right? Because you're not using gasoline. So I do see the value in them, but at the same time, we're seeing so many concerns about our young folks using them in ways that are pretty inappropriate, not wearing helmets, doing papa wheelies, traveling as a large group, traveling in the middle of live traffic, all kinds of things like that. They're not licensed, they're not plated, there's no school you can go to. They're buying them now with their own money. So it's kind of creating this new dynamic between parent-child. And I hear stories like as young as 8, 7, 6 are zipping these around in the neighborhoods. And from my perspective in Ward 2, which is including the downtown and the waterfront, we're not infrastructured for that. So we're getting a lot of conflict with scooters and e-bikes, which are basically almost mini motorcycles. But again, there's stores that are selling them in our community. So they're not illegal. They're being sold.
Well, never mind stores. You can order them online and have them shipped to your house from China and all over the world, right? So
absolutely right. There's no barrier to access aside from cost, probably. But again, I don't know. People are figuring it out, and I look at the pros and the cons. It's definitely an emerging micromobility use, and insurance rates have gone up so high because of auto theft, backlog on procurement, parts, repairs, etc., that I know, like my niece, she bought her own car, saved up, is trying to, pay insurance, and the insurance is just so high. I can't see how a university student, college student, working person can possibly pay for a car and insurance on top of all of life's obligations if they need to only get, 5 to 10 kilometers from home to get to their
Yeah.
employment, to their obligations. So, I do recognize that it's becoming attractive if used in a responsible way because of some other external pressures. But at the same time, we're in a little bit of a gap in policy because different municipalities are being given the option to manage it differently.
Sure. Yeah.
Even though it's a provincial roads piece, police are kind of saying that they're taking more of an education approach because they really don't know what they're going to do to run around and charge that many small children, right, with no ID
Sure.
on them, no nothing. And then the municipalities are caught in this window of pilots. And, I don't want to be humorous about this. I know it's a serious topic, but as someone who had a scooter basically in 2022, before they sort of exploded, they're allowed on Centennial Pathway, but then I say, well, that's great. How do I get it there? Am I carrying it on my back and then I flip it open and then I can go on the pathway? So really that interconnected mobility conversation is something that we do have to have on a more serious level because a lot of places all around the world are dealing with this and the pressures that are external between cost, roads, traffic. We're always saying we want to get people off the roads. Well, if I need to go downtown here, there, and a few places, wouldn't you rather people are using something that doesn't take up a parking space, something that doesn't add to congestion, but they can do multiple little stops quickly? And that's the other half of the pressure, right? Is that life has a lot of pressure and people don't have time, they don't have patience, and the faster they can get something done, the faster they can get onto something more meaningful. So it's definitely something that needs to get looked at, and we're seeing it in different ways in different parts of the city. More recreational in the north, functional in the south, and then some pressure points like some of the neighborhood streets in the north, and definitely Spencer Smith Park. And
Listen, there, you got to know that in the north, the houses are so close together, the roads are smaller. You have the luxury of having a little bit larger and more space downtown and in the lower south areas in Burlington. Up there, you come around a corner, with four cars
yeah,
parked on the side of the road, nobody can see anything, no lights, no helmets, black outfits, the whole works, right? Like it's disastrous. Like it can be disastrous, and it will be, and that will be a tipping
yes.
point,
It
right?
will be a
That
tipping
where
point, and I have to give a shout out to Dr. Armstrong at Joe Brandt in the Fracture Clinic. I know he has spoken with advocacy about this because it is putting pressure on our healthcare system too, with bumps, bruises,
Yeah.
spills, and falls. So
Mm,
it is all interconnected, as I kind of discussed, and I think that's another hallmark of that leadership piece, right? Is seeing how something is affected across all the different inputs, that are either, from insurance rates to hospital pressures. This is not just, hey, there's kids on e-scooters. There's a lot more to these conversations, and it's that thoughtfulness and insight that I think our community is ready for the next chapter of in Burlington.
So,
go ahead, Karen.
Lisa, I'm curious, maybe not only for this e-bike situation, but for all futuristic changes in the technology world and around the world, and is there not a group that does studies for futuristic changes and the demographics need to be changed? Or is there not a group that is in the city of Burlington that sits and looks at all this and then comes back to you guys and says, okay, so this is where this is going to happen in 2030, or that sort of thing? So is there a group?
Yeah, there is a group. It's our strategy group, and so that would be out to the folks that created through our Chief Transformation Office. That's our Horizon 2050. That's our Vision to Focus plan. And as someone who's worked very diligently with strategic plans and business plans more so in my corporate role, strategic plans in my board role. So, for example, I'm on the Halton Police Board. And the Halton Police has just completed its last strategic plan, which is a requirement under the new Community Safety and Policing Act. And that strategic plan was in fact noted by the Inspectorate of Policing as one of the, accoladed strategic plans in Ontario in the last
Good.
inspector's report. So it's that hybrid of those two pieces together where we're looking out far into the future,
Yeah.
but we're also agile enough to have our business plan. And actually, I'll tell you something, in 2018, when this council was first elected, that was one of the first things that we did. And I think, I'll be honest, it was a lot to do with my pressing, because I can't function without a business plan. I just cannot. And so the idea of all these new people coming into City Hall and new roles, old roles, a huge shift and change in the last council. We basically did what we should have done, and we should have done it again in 2022, and we didn't. And maybe that's why we're seeing a lot of these frays at the edges of where our community is kind of saying, like, I want more from you, because the business plan was good, but it's a bit too loose. So it's a bit lofty, right? So, we had so many plans within the plan, but it's still helping to chart that course, and it does funnel into the 2050 plan, which used to be kind of a 2040 plan, right? You refresh that every 10 years. And we do have a risk sort of registry as well. But again, we've been kind of shaken up and poured out a few times now by the provincial government. So it does make this work incredibly challenging, where we're navigating and we're responding very quickly to big changes. And I think that's where a lot of focus comes and goes, and sometimes with material outputs and sometimes with nothing, just advocacy. And then when we really need help, like with this micromobility e-scooter piece, it doesn't seem like there's much traction or movement, again, as you said, Justin, until it's going to be too late and something will have to happen. So
on that sort of note of pressure and growing communities and changing communities, obviously there's a big push right now, especially with the province, to create affordable housing and more housing in general. How would you balance provincial growth mandates while still preserving some of our core neighborhoods that people love and the way they love them? Because I know there's been a lot of pushback, for example, on the high rises and things that we've seen come to Burlington from people like ourselves. Like my mom and I, we've been in Burlington since I was born, I guess. So 46 years, I'll tell you. And so we're like OGs from way back in the day. And we've seen this city change so much. And the newest big change when it comes to this sort of thing is these new push for high rises and more condensed or dense living areas. How do you balance all of that? Because the province clearly wants us to do more, but we also want to preserve what Burlington is and not make it Mississauga or Toronto,
Yes, so certainly agree with all that you've said, number one.
Yes.
But but I think we need to refocus on where we already have opportunity and we're not using it to its maximum potential. So, and that's another big theme of my candidacy, is that we have a lot of great opportunities within our own foundation, but we're not having the type of leadership that we need to take it to the next level. So for example, just in my own ward, I have 10,700 units approved, and they are either approved by way of a council vote, where it's the type of development and growth that we want to see. Some examples include some townhomes off of Helena and Plains Road. There are some lovely stacked towns where people can call home as a family off of Glenwood. There are 7 towers right beside the GO station where Holland Park was. That's certainly an appropriate location. There's memory care units at Guelph Line and New that have been approved by council. These were approved by council. These are not contentious developments. And right now, all of those are sitting as rubbles of dirt. And so I've been making humorous comments along the way saying, it's great we have this pipeline to permit committee. I think we really need a permit to dirt committee and figure out what is taking so long to get these applications that are already done, approved, have had the community voice move through the appropriate process, and yet they're sitting there empty. So if we're really serious about this housing crisis and we're really serious about welcoming new residents into our community, let's do it with what we already have and stop trying to make more big contentious issues. So if we already worked on what we have and we unlog jammed what's going on there, whether it's financing, and a perfect example is 409 Grant Street, which is across from City Hall. The financing there wasn't working. And so thankfully the CMHC had came forward with some funding opportunities for the developer, which is Reserve Properties. Council came forward with a reduced parking rate, one of the lowest in the downtown, but that is directly tied to a 25% affordable unit appropriation under the CMHC guidelines. And so that to me is a win, is a win, is a win. And one of the pieces of feedback from Reserve Properties said that, you know, they had chosen Burlington because of the relationship that we had built through some ongoing conversations, knowing that, you know, when I'm in the planning process, I'm probably not going to be my kindest self. And I'm probably going to be very deep in the details, the technical pieces, reviewing everything with scrutiny, asking tough questions. But the second that that piece is over and we flip the page, and again, that's pipeline to permit. How do you get the permit? When it goes to permit to dirt, I am like your best friend. How do we get this built as fast as possible? Get you in, get you out. Time is money. It's money for everybody. It's money for the city. It's money for you. And so when we move through site plan process, that's where I look to create and strengthen those relationships and say, we're going to do this really fast and really easy, and we're going to remove roadblocks. We're going to get through the construction mobility management plan, and we're going to get you open. So you can ask any of the downtown developers if that is the truth, and I know that they will give you a yes, because even if I was a little bit crunchy during the planning process, maybe I protested against you. Once it's done, I'm only here to share in your success in a very quiet way.
I think the biggest hurdle we have right now is literally just the market as a whole, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing developments being shut down. The one at Appleby and Upper Middle. I think another one in Burlington just went into receivership, if I'm not mistaken.
In downtown core developments received.
Yeah, because of the market, because the price that they're selling them for in the moment, they aren't factoring out 2 years later once they're built. Right. And and the developers can see this heading forward. And now the public has seen that problem starting to arise and said, we don't want to touch new builds anymore. So it's creating a bigger problem as a whole because the market is tumbling as a whole. And I think there's a, I don't know what you can do about it. I don't know the answer from your point of view. Right. But I just know that the market is making the new builds more challenging. Yeah, for sure.
It's very challenging for you, Lisa. It's very challenging, but and there's got to be a resolution. And there's some, you know, there were some builders that were building condos that came up with a concept: come and live in it and see, try condo living, and don't pay anything until you finally try condo living. I don't know how it came out, but it was in Cambridge that they tried this, right? And it was quite amusing because I read that article and I said, oh, interesting.
Well, I think it's a product mismatch, right? And I would boil it all down to a product mismatch. So when you have 500 square foot condos and you have a community of families, you have those external pressures where our young people aren't buying their own houses and they're staying home longer. You know, 2-bedroom plus den, you know, to see that those are oftentimes less than 5% of the unit mixes and almost 100% of the unit demand. There is a mix match between what is being offered in market and what the market is asking for. And I think that what we see now is some of that recalibration, and hopefully, you know, we'll get the right unit mix. We have that outlined in our housing strategy, which needs to be refreshed, and I'll look forward to doing that as one of the first orders of business if elected. And so you will see that, you know, there's product in the market, but there's people who are still having the challenge of housing affordability and housing, you know, achieving their housing dreams. So there is a mismatch. some of those units that I spoke about need to get built. Those are the sort of, string of towns, double stacked towns, the memory care units where, again, Guelph Line and New, one half is rental or condo, and the other half is sort of a semi-assisted living / memory care. And when we're seeing people, making those new life choices in a new chapter in their older age, they still want to be together. And oftentimes, and it's the experience in my family with my nanny and my poppy, one might, have more needs and the other is still more independent, but they want to be together, but they can't be together in the same home for those needs that are, really difficult for any family to navigate. So when we see those types of opportunities, we should be rolling out the red carpet and figuring out what the root cause of these delays are. And I don't believe that they're solely down to development charges. I think there's things that we can do and waive
Agreed.
if it's the right unit mix. And you saw, I don't want to rehash that because that sure blew up on Family Day weekend. But we, I think, mostly moved past that in a way that's been explained a few times now. But I think collaborating and working more closely with our community development partners in a way that moves us to permit to dirt will get people into homes in our community without putting that additional pressure on our infrastructure, because it'll be in the right places, mostly where council's already approved.
Do you have a few more minutes? Because we are running past time. I want to make sure I respect your time.
Yeah, anytime.
Cool. So on that note, talking about affordability, you've served with the Burlington Food Bank and the United Way. Are there any measures that you'd like to put in place that would help combat local poverty and food insecurity? I think if we've learned anything over the last few months with the guests that we've had on our show, we know that there's a greater need than I think we all understand for these sorts of things in this very moment. What have you got on tap to kind of help with those scenarios?
Well, first thing I would say is there are more people in need in your community that you don't know are in need. And so please, first and foremost, remove any stigma that you might have about people who are struggling, because they are your friends and your neighbors, and in fact, probably your family members. So first and foremost, it's all of us. This type of thing has no discrimination, right? Mental health doesn't have a discrimination. Our unemployment is so high. Our youth are at, I think last I checked, 17 or 18% youth unemployment. So, I'm committed to making a lot of opportunities for youth so that they can take those as, resumes or reference letters. So if you're a youth and you see this, please reach out. I'll make sure we can find something for you to do that is meaningful. I did serve on the food bank. That was during the time when we moved over to a spoken hub model with Feed Halton. And that was really important work because it was maximizing the ability to get the most amount of food to the most amount of people, just using a different business process and creating a new path of doing that. And same thing, I initiated the urban farm, which was in downtown Burlington at Branton Ghent, with our community development partner, which is Molinaro, and a group of volunteers that ended up being Bunchberry Farms. And we delivered, thousands, I think at last count, it was about 10 or 12,000 pounds of nutrient dense, hyper local food that was grown by volunteers through the pandemic, which also included an opportunity to create community connections, improve mental health and well-being in the reflection gardens, help our youth and our school groups come and be more connected to our ecosystem through some tours and some pollinator opportunities. So, it is all, everything is more than just what it looks like on the surface, right? So it's not just getting people food, it's how are we keeping people out of loneliness? How are we, strengthening mental health so that they don't slip? I am the council representative on the United Way City of Burlington, which is our corporate charity of choice representative. And I've done a number of different fundraising. I'm probably in the tens of thousands now that has been a result of my efforts between public skating opportunities and drop-in pickleballs and Christmas markets and you name it. We're always trying to think of ways to help raise money for United Way because they support many local organizations that might not have the bandwidth or the star power to run their own really big fundraising pieces. but they are transforming lives, and they're making people, you know, helping them to reach their potential, which is what we want to see for everyone. So, you know, there's so much in our community. There's a place for you to get a warm meal in Ward 2 almost every day of the week from a volunteer. So, and to have a community connection in doing that. So there's so much that's happening, and I would just encourage anyone to share, you know, their time, their talents, and their treasures. Like it's washing dishes, it's putting, you know, chairs in and out, it's serving, it's, you know, donating your clothes to Compassion Society because they give them for free to people in our community, no cost. There's so much that's interconnected, and I think that's one of the things we should be proudest of in our community is how much people, you know, are both compassionate and resilient because they know there's a safety net in their community of people that they don't even know, ready to stand by and help.
I have one more question, and then I do have a question from the audience that we seem to have gotten, which is great. You'll be the first live question that we've ever had on the show, which is kind of cool. But
Great.
we'll finish our question and sort of area with just shifting gears really slightly, because I think one of the biggest things from a public standpoint is we all just want to feel heard, and we want to feel like things are changing based on what we're saying. Otherwise, we lose faith in the government. We lose faith in our vote, right? You know, and so the more people that vote, you know, the more people that are heard in that capacity. But we all also have opinion and have thoughts and have good ideas, quite frankly, in some cases. Is there any plan to restructure public consultations so residents feel that their feedback directly helps shape the council decisions?
100%. We do not have it right now. I will tell you that for sure. It is backed up by our engagement scores on our community survey, which is only 20%, and 10% of that is having touched an online survey at one point.
Oh.
Your town hall questions and answers are scripted. They're already cooked in advance. There's a couple, you know, out of like live, but they're all done in advance. The 6:30 p.m. council meetings are completely unacceptable. They squeeze the community out. We heard that again when we went through the data center delegations, and people had said, you know, I took a day off work. And again, we talked about the financial challenges that people are living with every day and precarious employment. So to take time off outside of normal business hours, I respect that everyone has different working hours, but it's got to change from the bottom up. I had a wonderful conversation on a cycling tour with the Cycling Advisory Committee, and they kind of said, like, how do we make change, and what do the advisory committees do? And I thought that was a really interesting question because I don't know if they're being heard well enough. And some of the things that they had told me, I thought, if we had just listened to something this simple, we can make so many small fixes, like a ramp here and a this there, and this piece needs to be repainted because it was repaved and it's not painted with the bike symbol. Like, I think there needs to be a new way to have a conversation with the community. And one of the best ideas I've actually heard is, you know, just doing open town halls. Or open delegations, so to speak, right? Because you're restricted as a community member to speak unless it's something on the agenda. Otherwise, you're in a silo, and you write an email, you get a canned response back. Thank you very much. It's very important to us. We'll keep it in mind. I mean, I don't know if people feel heard. I don't know if I even feel heard as a councillor. So I do think we need to reset the relationship with City Hall and our community, and do it really quickly, to be honest with you, like first 100 days level of really quickly, because I do feel that the tension you spoke about at the beginning is because people are not feeling heard. They're not feeling heard about certain sports in their parks. They're not feeling heard about food trucks in the park during the same time that they are hurting local businesses. They're not feeling heard about data centers, why they weren't informed. They're not feeling heard about the budget. At all. They're just not feeling heard in general. And again, that's backed up with those community survey statistics. And I think completely working from the bottom up once again. I already did that the first time I started in council by putting delegations at the front of council, because when I was delegating 7 times to the last council, I would have no idea when I was delegating, and I would sit there with my nerves in this spooky council chamber, and wait to be called. And I think just to be respectful of people giving their voices, they should go first.
Right.
You know, we have a petition process now that's improved, but I think there's a really long way to go to see the direct relationship between your feedback and action by the city.
Well, so one of the big ones that's happened recently is the Millcroft development.
Yes.
Obviously, again, we need development, but now there's this big push now that the development has started to say, well, why are we doing this? This is a problem. There's all these issues. And I feel in my head, in my heart, I'm like, well, why weren't these things brought up months or years ago? This isn't like this just happened. This has been in planning for probably years already. So where was the meetings with the city and the support from the people in the citizens in the area? Where was all that? It seems like it's too little too late at this moment, that they had their opportunity, but maybe weren't aware of it. I don't understand why it wasn't more clear. And I think that's a big thing. And then people turn to Facebook, and that
Yeah.
that Facebook mentality snowballs the negativity and the anger and all the things. And then it becomes worse, right?
It's funny you brought that up. And again, for folks that are tuning in, this isn't scripted, this is live. Uh, I was just reflecting, I was going through old photos. And back when I was a new councillor, for the first time in Burlington's history, we had 3 towers over 25 stories. They were between 28, 30-ish, whatever, 26. And they were happening in full construction at the exact same time within 1 kilometer of each other.
Right.
And I looked back and I kind of like chuckled at myself thinking, what were you even thinking? Like, who were you? And I hauled the 3 different developers, Molinaro, Carriage Gate, and Addy, and I'm very thankful that they had agreed to come to the art gallery. The art gallery was full to the brim. And then on the other side was all of the city's technical staff, engineering, traffic management, site plan, etc. And I put together in the middle, so the councillor is the mediator, the bridge, sort of an overview of what was happening, because people needed to understand how we were going to manage this unprecedented situation in such a small area while they were all approved by the tribunal or otherwise. They were approved. And so we overlaid all of the expectations. This is the construction management plan. This is the noise bylaw. This is what happens. Here's who to call. Here's what we want posted on the fences. Here's who you call in the situation. This is what a hoarding looks like. It's illuminated. These are the 3 different hauling routes. We were overlaying 3 hauling routes for shoring and excavating, and then coming back in for concrete pours, all at the same time over the same window, which was a huge disruption. But with all of that communication and change occurred, right? So when we listen to learn, not listen to respond, positive change can occur. And that's exactly what happened. So those 3 towers were built almost without a problem. Like, I don't even remember any big flare-ups. And I will say it was difficult to navigate the one at Lakeshore and Martha before my time. But once we folded it in with the construction management plan and etc., it was fine. And it was good communication with the site manager. So a resident would say, hey, this light, and in their lights, they're either lights or giant fans, is positioned in a way that's kind of impacting my unit. No problem. I just would respond and say, please, can you move this or send a message to the team? And then that quiet enjoyment of community could resume while they're still undergoing all this big challenge. And we're having it right now again at 409 Brant Street, because we didn't have 23 stories next to 23 stories when they were built. So now this one is a little bit difficult with dust, noise, hauling route, and it's even more contracted because there's more towers downtown. But we have a monthly meeting with the entire development team, with city staff, city communications, city's traffic, my office. We have a newsletter blurb that goes out each month that gives you an update on this. There's postings amongst the hoardings of who to call in case of emergency. We're about to do a circular to some of the neighboring properties. And so it kind of behooved me a little bit that Millcroft became so contentious with this very routine process. And again, maybe this taps back into what I said at the beginning. You know, I'm not going to be a joyful experience moving through the planning process. But once that page is turned and the decision is made, I will do everything in my power to make things efficient, seamless, strong communication, and get it out of there. There's no helpfulness in significant delay because it doesn't have a better
No.
return
At
than
this point, you need it to
in the
get done.
speed.
You need the residents to go back to life. You need the city to be back to normal in that
Yeah.
space. Let's
But I
keep
think
moving
it's about
forward.
that relationship building too, right? So I came with good honesty to all of our community development partners and just said, hey, listen, you know, I know how I was a couple months ago, but it's a new me now. And what can I do to be helpful? And I
Right.
will follow through and I will communicate and I will bring you know, the right people into the room. And the community appreciates that, right? Because the last thing that someone who is trying to build a development that's been approved wants is people complaining every single day. They don't have the bandwidth for that. And it's complaints that can be intercepted before they become complaints with some communication. And maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe as a mayoral candidate, maybe I need to come up to Millcroft and bring the parties together and say, okay, let me share with you how this looks because we've done it downtown. I think I've done more tall developments downtown, you know, even without my choosing, you know, successfully without bringing the community into uproar. In fact, they're in uproar over Prospect Street, which is our own project. But there's not a peep about the second phase of Paradigm or some of the other developments. I mean, I think it's Beau Soleil is up and done, and I didn't hear a single peep about it. It was just complete. So you know, we've worked really hard to build that community conversation together to say, this is what happens, here are the impacts, here's what's not acceptable, here's what is acceptable, and here's why we're going to move this along as quickly as possible. And when we have those honest conversations with the community, it puts everybody on the same page. And that was a theme back in that 2017, 2018, right? We were learning new terms, ground-oriented development, floor area ratios. We didn't know what those words meant. But when we all lifted our knowledge together through my leadership, it just helped our whole community have a richer conversation.
Sounds like communication is key through all of this.
Yeah, and honesty, right? What you
Yeah.
can do, what you can't do, why, and just really listening to learn and listening to understand.
Couple of really quick fire questions from the audience here. This one notes, what about eliminating Love Your Food, Your Neighbor program and the Food for Feedback program? Neither of these are necessary and cost taxpayers money and use up staff time at the city of Burlington. I don't
Yeah,
even,
I'd like to see a shift in the food for the Love My Hood. That was, I think it was one of my budget requests. I think $500 is a lot. I think we need to put some auditing. We did one audit on it already, but I'd like to see a little bit more what people could do to be creative in their neighborhoods with a little bit less. And then the food for feedback, it's a tricky one. I'd like to see some more guardrails around it. So just as a heads up, I won't be going to Food for Feedback again this year as a mayoral candidate. I know that it sets the community just in a tizzy and rubs people the wrong way going there when you're a candidate. So I won't be there. That's why I don't think it's appropriate to be showing up and pretending that you're listening when you should already know what people are saying, number one. And number two, it's really inappropriate to be there as a candidate. You know, let people have 5 minutes to actually talk to staff for once and get their
Sure.
questions answered without budging in with the politics, please. Like candidates shouldn't be there. And I did excuse myself in 2022 just as well for the same reasons. So that's something. I don't think people need a whole entire meal. I think maybe we could do like just an ice cream giveaway or something. But really, you know, the staff and the different groups put a lot of work into that. I just wish it wasn't such a 1 day up and down thing for 4 hours on a weekend with like a whole plate of tacos. I mean, that should be something that's even more consistent, semi-annual. It should be like a town hall, like a show, meet and greet, whatever, a trade show. Because we do have a lot of incredible people at the city and we have a lot of amazing departments. It's one of the things I actually learned through when I had my interns in a couple of years ago. We went on little tours of the different departments, and I learned things that I had no idea. I even went through the bus car wash, which we have. And
Cool.
I think people have a deep desire to know more and connect more with their city. And we should be providing a few more opportunities. And if we're getting the turnout for food for feedback, probably because it's a lot of everything and you can get what you want, a little bit of heritage, a little bit of planning, a little bit of community services, a little bit of that, it makes your time used more efficiently. I just don't think it needs to come at the significant cost that it comes at every year.
I have one last question from an audience member, and it can be kind of a quick yes or no answer because I know we don't want to get it. This is too big a topic to get into today, but is the data center a done deal or not?
From what I can see, it looks pretty done. Three of the councillors, Bentivania, Sharman, and particularly Nissan, the deputy mayor of the environment, voted for it to continue without any moratorium or any intervention, citing that it would spook business and it would, it's a permitted use. I argued the opposite. We will get another report back in December, which I had wanted in September. And I think it's just a really unfortunate path that our city has taken around managing this emerging use, especially as we're seeing other municipalities now, Mississauga, Oakville, Cambridge, having a more community-minded conversation around this emerging use. And we do have opportunities. The mayor can use her strong mayor's powers for sure. There's an opportunity. Two of the councillors who were absent could call for a reconsideration vote since they didn't vote. And three who had voted for it, had voted against the moratorium. And it wasn't even for the moratorium, it was to explore the moratorium
Right.
so that we could put some more studies together around what appropriate uses are. And let's not forget, we've used up our last 5% of hydro capacity on this use that's not matched by any federal funding investments. It's not providing any more than 40 to 50, I think, $1,000 in additional tax uplift. That's really honestly nothing compared to some people renovate their homes and I could get 10 home renovations and get that much money back into the city coffers. I'm sure you've heard it from a real estate side. The amount of jobs that are coming wasn't fully disclosed. There was no economic impact analysis put in with the technical documents. So really, all I was asking for was a better framework. We're hearing from the provincial government that they've heard the municipalities and they are working harder to bring that type of a framework. And we kind of let this one slip through our fingers, which again, I will remind people, no one in the community would have known if I didn't start bringing it out of an internal email circulation into the public eye through a motion.
It sounds like these data centers are a thing of the future because everyone seems to need them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be a thing. It's just how to handle them, which nobody really understands. It's the e-scooter conversation on a different level. What do we do with something that's new?
What do we do with something that's new? And, how do we make sure that we're welcoming the right kinds of investments and investments in technology while also protecting our community and other uses that are nearby? And how are we protecting our resources that are limited, like hydro? That's 15,000 homes or the equivalent of our entire hospital, which is over 2,000 jobs. So how are we using our limited resources in the best options and capacities possible? And again, that's a big theme for me, is how are we getting the most out of the little that we have?
So we took a little extra time for this and just because this was such a special opportunity to have you on. So I thank you for coming on. Do you have one last message to the constituents that are about to vote in a few months?
Well, please vote, number one.
Please vote. Yes, please vote.
So what's really great about Burlington is that we actually have online voting. So you can do that from the comfort of wherever you are. Don't forget our library has free Wi-Fi, all of our library branches. So when you go to the city's website, My Vote Burlington, you can click to see if you're a registered voter. It doesn't mean you have to register to vote. It just means that if you make sure that you're known on that website, that you will get a card in the mail from the city. And in that card, you'll have a PIN number, and that will allow you to access that advanced online polling. So, I personally am old school. I like to go to voting day, and I like to stand in the lines. I don't know. I still like to touch paper books. Like, I don't know. I have a few things. I'm very advanced, but sometimes I I steep into nostalgia a little bit. So if you want to get ahead on that electronic voting, it takes it's so fast. It's so amazing that we have it. Some other municipalities don't. So let's use it. And if you can go on to myvoteburlington.ca and just check if you are registered, you'll get one of those incredible cards to unlock your online voting opportunities.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time. This has been fun and interesting and enlightening. And
Thank you, Lisa.
thank you for
Thank
coming
you
on.
so much, both of you. Thanks.
Have a good day, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye.